Democrat Raphael Warnock comes out on top in Georgia's runoff election for U.S. Senate after defeating Republican challenger Herschel Walker. The win gives Democrats a 51-49 Senate majority in next year's session, as well as outright leadership of all Senate committees.
All right, let's bring in Joe Watkins and Antjuan Seawright. Joe is a former aide to President George H.W. Bush and host of Joe Watkins' State of Independence on Lighthouse TV. And, of course, Antjuan is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. Welcome to you both. Joe, let me start with you. Herschel Walker is the only Republican candidate in a statewide race in Georgia this election cycle to lose his race. So break down for us where the GOP fell short in this race.
Well, it really has to do with the candidate, of course. At the end of the day, it's the candidate's message, the candidate's capacity to convince voters to show up to vote for him or her. And in this case, Herschel Walker wasn't able to improve on the numbers. He wasn't able to win even all of the supporters that Governor Kemp had. Had he been able to do that, of course, had he done as well in places like Forsyth County as Governor Kemp did, he might today be the senator-elect. But he wasn't able to do that. And message matters, and clearly he did not have a strong enough message to win over a majority of the Georgia voters.
Antjuan, I want to bring you into this conversation. I remember how optimistic you were before the election, but even then, more often than not, the party in the White House often loses congressional seats during a midterm election, at least, and that didn't happen this time in the Senate. Do you expect that Democrats are going to have a significantly different experience given that they now have picked up an additional seat in the Senate versus what sort of conventional wisdom would indicate would happen after a midterm?
Well, first of all, congratulations to Senator Warnock. I think he deserves credit for running one hell of a race. The fact is he ignored the noise on K Street and focused on what the lyrics were saying coming from voters on Georgia streets. That mattered in this type of election. The reason Democrats were able to disrupt and interrupt history is because we continue to make investments in the infrastructure in these battleground places and spaces like Georgia to be positioned for a 50-50 jump ball. I spent significant time in Georgia. I was in the state at least 5 times. And the one thing that we were able to do was make strong investments into communities of color. And it paid dividends. The same 10 black belt counties that had turnout in 2004, that turnout increased by 42 points in this election. Warnock did very well with African-American voters. He did well with young voters. He did well with AAPI voters, Latino voters, and he did very well, better than expected, with white voters, and that was a coalition that made a difference for him in this election. And fact of the matter is, Lana, what Democrats did historically that we have not done before, we ran a real balance and campaign act of high tech and high touch. There was more money put on the ground than it was on TV for the first time in the history of our party, and I think all those things combined gave Warnock a leg up and gave him a chance at victory, and he was able to do that. And when you were in Georgia, like I was, in the barbershops, the beauty salons, in places where voters are, who may not pay attention the way they do, the way they framed this election was qualified versus unqualified, ignorance versus intelligence, and I think that is another reason why Warnock was able to prevail and disrupt history.
I love those barbershop reviews.
Yeah, those are really always where you hear what's really happening in neighborhoods and communities. Joe, let me ask you to sort of respond to something that you said, but also Antjuan just highlighted, candidate quality. It strikes me that I understand that the former president of the United States handpicked Herschel Walker to run and that members of your party have been reluctant to go against former President Trump. But it struck me that it almost felt to some folks in Georgia that by picking Herschel Walker, which for all intents and purposes, his only qualification for running for office was that he was a known commodity, somebody that people knew him in Georgia, and the fact that he was black. In other words, Republicans saw that black candidates had been able to make inroads in the state of Georgia, and they thought, well, if we just have a black candidate on the ticket, that will turn out the black vote. And of course, it doesn't work like that. So is that what your sense was, or did you really think that Herschel Walker was qualified to be a United States senator?
I think that Herschel had challenges with his message, articulating his message clearly. At the end of the day, A lot of people in Georgia remember him as one of the greatest football players at the University of Georgia ever, and somebody who certainly is believed to have transformed that program. And for that, of course, he gets his proper credit. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean that you're automatically qualified to be a United States senator. And if you want to be a U.S. senator, you have to articulate to the voters, to the people who vote, why you're going to be their senator, why you deserve to represent them in the United States Senate, and what matters you're going to tackle and how you're going to do it. And to the degree that you gain their confidence is the degree to which you gain their vote. And had Herschel been able to gain their confidence fully as a candidate for the U.S. Senate, then he would not have lagged behind Governor Kemp, who ran a very strong campaign just a month or so ago for governor. But he lagged behind Kemp in almost every area, and certainly in all those key counties. And that was an indicator that a lot of traditional Republican voters who supported Governor Kemp couldn't bring themselves to support Herschel Walker.
Antjuan, I know Democrats are celebrating right now, fresh off of this victory, but you still lost the House and going to have a lot of challenges with Americans being dissatisfied. The public approval ratings for the president, even though, he outperformed expectations, are still not great. What is the greatest priorities for the Democratic Party? And what do you think you can actually accomplish in the second half of Biden's term?
Well, while I am celebrating today, this celebration will be short terms because two things happen, Lon and Vlad, in elections. You win or you learn. And so often when you win, you do not take the time to learn. This race should have never been this close because of the difference between the two candidates. And so Democrats, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board and look at those rural areas where Herschel Walker underperformed, where we have some ground to make up. And we've got to learn how to get off the interstate and go down the dirt roads, because those rural voters in places like Georgia and others are going to be very consequential in 2024. This victory last night was simply a down payment on a very tough Senate map in 2024, and I think we have to be realistic about our expectations. You asked the question, what happens from here? The old saying I learned in politics is that you cannot govern if you do not win. Now, with a majority in the United States Senate and the vice president no longer having to break the tie, we will be able to control committees, be able to have some say-so in what legislation goes and what comes, but also Joe Biden will be able to continue to rewrite the judiciary. We've put more black women on the federal courts than all other presidents combined, including a black woman on the United States Supreme Court. 90 judges have been confirmed. There's an opportunity to further do that and deal with legislation in a real way like George Floyd, like voting rights, and hopefully we can do something about Raphael Warnock's proposal to make insulin $35 for everyone, not just those on Medicare like we did in the Inflation Reduction Act.
All right, Joe Watkins and Antjuan Seawright, always great to talk to you both. Thank you very much.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks so much.